you just happen to make a workable firearm, it's a workable firearm, right? So, me. Me. Oh, me.
This is 35-year-old Justin Moore, a dumb criminal who just realized he committed an act of terror. To make things worse, he's about to find out that detectives captured everything on camera.
I'm just saying.
Just saying the information we have. I mean, we've got video, we've got records. You know, law enforcement search your room.
Electronic devices.
Electronic devices, other people's electronics devices. I mean,
I am so in danger of having my entire life just taken from me right now.
At 6 p.m. on September 7, 2020, nearly 1,000 protesters gathered in front of Seattle Police Officers Guild to demand transparency in collecting bargaining agreements. What seemed to be a peaceful protest was about to turn into a riot, as undercover officers within the crowd soon noticed the distinct smell of gasoline. Officers suspected that not one, but multiple people in the crowd possessed incendiary devices. If this was the case, they needed to catch them soon before a fire engulfed the crowd. Within the span of 20 minutes, the two individuals were caught. The first was a man carrying a bag that reeked of gas, and the second was Justin Moore, a man carrying 12 Molotov cocktails in a Corona beer box. This was confirmed not only by several witness testimonies, but much of the CCTV footage in the area. As someone who thought that a 12-pack of Corona was the perfect disguise for incendiary devices, officers knew that Justin was not the brightest of the bunch. As he is interviewed nearly a year later, it becomes apparent that this initial judgment was definitely an overestimation. The footage you are about to see was provided to us by the Seattle Police Department.
So again, to introduce myself, as I told you in the car, but I'm just going to say it again. My name is Rick Hull. I work for the Seattle Police Department and also for the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. Okay, I have two roles. So it's not uncommon. You'll see it everywhere in all sorts of parts of federal government. They have local liaisons and local people that work with them because they bring the local.
Yeah, but you just said the T word.
Right,
That's what gets me shot in an alley somewhere.
It's not what gets you shot in an alley. It is not.
So I'm Agent Steve Houghton. I work with Rick. We work, like he said, for the Domestic Terrorism Squad. And I'll let him go ahead and explain what we're interested in.
So I'm going to ask you some questions. Here's the thing with this, right? Is I'm going to ask you questions. You get to choose if you answer my questions. Okay? Your cooperation is appreciated. It's noted. It's good. If there's something you don't want to answer, then you just don't answer it, right? Because if you invoke the right to a lawyer, which is your constitutional right, and I am not saying you shouldn't or you should. I'm not saying either of those. But what I am telling you is once you invoke and once you say, I want an attorney, then all of our discussions are over. We can't go on any further. Even if you say 5 minutes later, you know what, I changed my mind. I actually do want to talk to you. We can't. So what we can do is go through these questions, and if there's certain questions you don't want to answer at that time, you say, you know what, I'd rather not answer that. Let's just go on and go with some other stuff.
Yeah, like he said, if you say lawyer, we just have to stop questioning.
Stop everything, yeah.
And until you get booked and everything at the Marshal Service, that's the time that you'll get an attorney assigned. So it would be, a while down the road before we talk to you with the attorney.
Okay.
So I just kind of wanted to lay just kind of the foundation of about you, and then kind of go into what I told you. Remember, I told you in the car what you were being arrested for was the investigation regarding the possession of the Molotov cocktails during the Labor Day March in September of 2020. Okay, but what I'd really kind of like to understand a little bit more is a little bit about you. So you're not from Washington State, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Were you born in California?
No.
Oh, where were you born?
Texas.
Texas, okay. And did you complete high school?
GD.
Okay. Did you go on for any further education, like trade school or anything else after that?
A little bit of college, but honestly, my mental health wasn't good enough to be a good student.
Oh, okay. And then, so you were up at the VA. you were in the military. What branch were you in the military?
Army first, then Marine Corps.
Okay. And did you do a full tour, full commitment in for the Marine Corps?
I did my 4 years.
Your contracted amount. Okay. And did you deploy overseas or anything, or?
Negative.
No. Okay. And what was your job in the?
Infantry.
It was infantry. Did you have a specific thing where you, like a specific duty that you did in the infantry for them? Like, were you a supply clerk, or were you somebody who was in machinist or mechanic or things like
Rifleman.
that? A rifleman. Okay. So you did your. Go ahead.
I never deployed, so they wound up making me do half a dozen things that weren't my job, but
okay.
That's just the name of the game.
I got you.
Typical military.
Yeah. So your military service was here.
It's hot in here.
I can open the door.
Yeah, that's fine. So you were.
Do you want some more water?
Yeah. So was your military service? It was all here in the United States. Was it in one place?
No, it was in Fort Benning, and then Camp Pendleton.
Okay. Then you did your 4 years in the military, and then what time, or not what time? When did you get out?
2012.
Although Justin officially left the military in 2012, his involvement with arms and explosives didn't end there. A few months after this interview, in June 2021, officers had searched his basement and found a notebook that contained several handwritten entries by Justin on the ingredients needed for an explosive device, not to mention the presence of several devices that are used in the manufacturing of explosives. To a degree, this meant there was definitely planning that went into this, at least when making these devices. But what Justin is about to say next is unfathomable for officers.
So I was trying to understand, kind of like, and that's why I was asking, what you did in the military and some of your jobs, trying to understand how we got to Justin Moore of Labor Day 2020. I mean, it seems like I was trying to understand the shift of where you were.
That was
how you kind
more
of got there.
or less manipulation.
Okay.
The Molotovs, as you could see, were not functional. They didn't have a corking mechanism at all. Like, they were just there to look pretty, attract a smell, and get me a reputation so that people that were starting trouble, people that were throwing rocks would come to me and I could more easily identify them.
Oh, okay.
So is it?
And at
So
the
you're
same
saying?
time,
So you're saying the
like,
ones that you're carrying were a prop?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
You can tell from the evidence that you gathered that they were not functional. I never intended to make a functional weapon.
Okay.
How did you, I guess, kind of backing up, so I was under the impression that you were there in support of kind of like the anti-capitalist, social justice type direct action people. Okay.
Not really. I was trying to identify them so that we could like remove them from the crowds.
Okay.
But a lot of the heavy hitters, like, they kind of sniffed what I was up to.
Mm.
The reason why you hear Justin use the word we rather than I is a slip-up. Even though there were 2 initial arrests, officers suspected that there may have been as many as 4 people involved in this plan. So if Justin is going to claim something as absurd as the Molotov being props, he might as well go the extra mile and say the rest of the conspirators were mannequins. Absurd claims like this one are why it might seem like Justin's character can be boiled down to him having a few marbles loose. However, Justin is a much more complex character than just that, one that hides a troubled past.
When I was in Army Basic in Fort Benning, something happened and I got sexually assaulted, and it was kind of violent. It didn't really have a sexual feel to it. I was pagan at the time in spiritual belief structure, and some individuals didn't like that very much, and they decided to make the witch boy ride a broom. So that happened, and I reported it the next day, and they discharged me, and I felt robbed, because I'm brave, I'm smart, I'm good man, and I wanted to help my country where it was hurting then, which was a pointless war. Like, no one was benefiting. So
Are you talking about what was happening here in the United States? Or?
No. This
Oh.
was during my enlistment in the Army.
I see.
So you're
In
saying like the
2005.
foreign wars.
The foreign wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's where Americans were dying, and I thought it would be honorable if it were me doing the risking than anyone else. That's where my heart's always been. And then they discharged me from the Army, and I felt like I was robbed of a chance to like be honorable and like do good, and I couldn't take that, so I joined the Marine Corps instead, and I did my 4 years there. But because of what happened to me in the Army, I started developing PTSD symptoms, and then that resulted in me ultimately becoming liability, just because of inconsistent behavior, inconsistent sleep, outbursts, just not talking about it. This is the most I've talked about it in a long time. I've talked about it with counselors directly in connection with my benefits, but I don't talk about that shit. I lie.
Yeah.
I lie my off. I lie my off to just avoid talking about that. I don't like.
No, I can understand that. I can.
And then I saw my country splitting and almost going into civil war.
You're talking about what was happening here.
2020.
Yeah.
During the civil unrest.
Yeah.
And like, I know why people are angry. Like, I'm not a fan of cops.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the prison system's more or less just kind of useless. It's not really helping anybody.
Mm-hmm.
No offense to y'all, but
I'm taking.
if it took people and like, trained them to have a job when they leave,
Yeah.
if we stopped all this probation, parole, felon, second-class citizen bullshit, like, I think that it would be a lot brighter for you, just reputation and hearts and minds, such. But so many people have like developed a drug problem, which is honestly, drug problems shouldn't even be your problem to deal with. That should be more or less like, this person's trying to kill themselves, get them in a mental hospital.
Yeah.
But regardless of me agreeing with some police or not, or general politics, like, I don't believe anyone's evil for trying to protect their local community.
So, but you weren't from here. You just decided to come up to Seattle. Seattle was the.
It was where the media blew it all up, saying like just declared a new Capitol Hill in Seattle, and it wasn't clarified on any of the media stations that Capitol Hill is just an area of downtown Seattle.
So you were thinking it's like the whole thing,
like,
or
It was like
what
the Civil War's happening or something.
Like, it's not even like, it wasn't like that. It was like a civil war is trying to start, and like these disorganized untrained people are just going to be mopped the floor with. So try to go and help as many people as I can in a medical facet, because I had first aid training from the infantry and such.
Okay.
Yeah.
Came out with a bunch of medical gear.
So you were in California at that time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you were in California and you came up, and the area known as Chop was already in full swing at that point by the time you came up? Did you even...
I came up and I arrived in Seattle 7 hours before it fell down.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And did you know anybody, or did you just...
No.
Really?
Oh, wow.
So
I love my country. I don't want my people to be hurt. I don't want your people to be hurt. I don't want anyone to be hurt here.
Okay.
We have such bigger problems.
From this conversation, Justin appears to be an anti-authoritarian. He shows clear disdain for the prison system, and in his eyes, his actions are justified as he wants to change the country for the better. For now at least, officers are less concerned about his ideals and more concerned about getting an admission out of Justin that the Molotovs are real. If he does so, then detectives have grounds to charge him with a federal crime like the possession of an incendiary or destructive device. If he denies the allegations, prosecutors might consider lesser charges such as disorderly conduct or public endangerment, depending on the available evidence. The latter is the worst-case scenario, as Justin could potentially endanger even more people because of his ideals.
Did you know how to construct a Molotov cocktail? Did you know any of that, the parts
I mean,
of that?
like, I was an infantryman, like, knowing how to construct weaponry is kind of
your thing?
Well, not my thing,
No.
but, like, it's pretty common knowledge, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you have to cork it so you don't blow yourself up when you light it. You know what I mean?
What was it corked with?
Nothing.
Oh, it didn't have anything. Did it
Right.
have a wick or anything?
It had rags, but, like, it's not enough to, like, prevent you from blowing yourself up if trying to use them.
Okay.
And I only waved them around to get people to recognize that I was waving them around and, like, get some notoriety so that the hard hitters throwing the rocks would, like, come towards me, and then I could head the problems off before they start.
Okay.
The hard hitters Justin refers to are protesters who were getting violent during the procession. To summarize, his goal was to defuse these threats by waving a Molotov cocktail.
And you ended up setting those down in a parking lot.
No, I set those down when the crowd was moving away from that location,
Right.
and the police were closing in on it, almost
Yes.
handing them to you.
So you're just...
Deliberately getting rid of them so that they would not be used.
I
Okay.
see.
Okay.
Did they have a fuel component in them?
It was just regular gas or whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
No mix.
No.
Okay. Sometimes you see that. Sometimes when people make Molotov cocktails, they
Yeah.
add
Yeah, I never
other items
bothered
into
to
the fuel.
I never really bothered to Google it. I just knew how to make one that wasn't one.
Okay.
That way, if this ever happened, I could explain what I'm doing.
Okay.
So your design was the Corona bottles, gasoline in the Corona bottles with the rags stuffed in. Where'd the rags come from?
Just bandanas. It's
Oh.
Corona.
Okay.
I mean, like the virus, like. it's
Yeah.
just-
So I mean,
bandanas are everywhere.
I mean, did you have to buy them or?
Yeah.
Gas station.
Yeah.
Was it the same gas station you got the gas at, or?
I think the gas was just left over from a lawnmower.
Oh.
Oh, so you didn't have to buy gas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
On a technicality, it might seem like Justin's Molotovs can't be classified as a destructive device. However, 18 U.S. Code 921 clearly states as definition of a destructive device as any combination of parts either designed or intended for use in converting any device into any destructive device. So even if the Molotovs do not have a corking mechanism, it still has the potential to be classified as such. Establishing this was an important part of the investigation. Now, officers need to move to getting Justin to answer the second most important question. Was he manipulated by other people, or did he do this purely of his own volition?
I don't want to spend years of my life in prison for trying to help.
I see.
Yeah, I see. So there's two pieces to that. You know, like Rick said, you know, we can't make any guarantees, but we know from experience if somebody, you know, accepts responsibility for something that they did, they can get credit for that, is one way. And then the other way they can get credit to kind of alleviate that is if they, you know, tell on everybody else, so to speak, you know, so they talk about what other people were doing. And usually what happens, I can tell you in my experience, most of the time, the vast majority of the people will just go that route, and usually what happens is it gets resolved outside of court. Everything gets resolved outside of court, and nobody ever knows that ever happened typically. Now, obviously, if somebody decided, you know, to go to trial or something like that, then that type of information comes out. So it's one of those things where it's kind of understood everybody's just going to help themselves at this point, you know. And so like Rick had mentioned to you, you know,
that's not true. All right, look, I'm not anyone's enemy. However, I understand the necessity for violent threats to be handled. And I assume that's why we're here, like you're analyzing me for such a threat. I absolutely do not mind helping. Like, this isn't just about me. Like, I'm a tool that can be used to help others. And if we're willing to go that route, I'd be more than happy to do so. I love my country.
I guess what I'm wondering is if you were a tool used by others, if you had been used and manipulated to do something by others, like if this group had come up with a plan and then they say, you know what, I know a guy who we can get to carry those. I know a guy who we can get to do this.
No, it's the reverse. That's what got their attention. But then the inauguration day thing happened, and they basically just looked at me as a snitch, and I thought it was safer for me not to contact them anymore.
The group that the detective refers to here is the same one that officers suspect of conspiring to start the fire.
It's a lot for you to shoulder something that may not be just yours to shoulder, right? If there's other people that were responsible for activities that day, and I guess it's just a lot for you to, you know, looking at your stuff and with your girlfriend telling me what kind of person she was, that she's probably all about personal responsibility, you know, taking responsibility for your own actions. But the reality is too that doesn't mean you are responsible for everybody else's actions. There's consequences for other people's own actions that you don't have to shoulder yourself, right? And I will tell you that, you know, that
I'm not sure what you're getting at here.
I guess my point being is that we're looking at this, that this was not a singular one person incident, that you were a lone wolf actor, so to speak, right? That using that kind of terminology, it kind of defines it's a single person making a single decision, doing things by themselves. There's plenty of information and stuff that suggests quite heavily that that's not the case, that you were not a person that acted alone. And that's one of the things that we're trying to get to is, you know, the other people that were acting along in concert with you shouldered the responsibility. I mean, you took it upon yourself or were guided to, or whatever it was, to carry those that Corona box of Molotov cocktails that day. But that doesn't mean you came up with the plan. That doesn't mean you came up with, you know, the idea. And it just means that you were the guy that walked it down the street. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to get to is establishing what your role was that day. And it's kind of sitting, you know, it's one of those things. I'm just having a hard time with somebody who's been, who's obviously served his country and done so many things that you would have maybe come up with this. It just doesn't seem to make sense. And so that's where I'm trying to really kind of understand.
I don't know if I should be insulting.
No, I'm not insulting your intelligence. I'm just saying.
We're just saying the information we have. I mean, we've got video, we've got records. Law enforcement search your room.
Electronic devices.
Other people's electronics devices. I mean, it's been a while. We're talking about a while ago.
Yeah.
So that can kind of give you an indication of the amount of information that we're looking at.
You're not the only person that we've looked at. But
in some of your stories, just not adding up. And you can understand where we're coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're trying to be upfront with us, and we obviously want you to be upfront with us because
I'm trying to be upfront with you and also not incriminate people who really aren't a threat. You know what I mean?
Right, and because I guess we can kind of look at it as, are they a current threat? So there's the
current or past.
Right. Well, if somebody decided to do something in the past that had the possibility of endangering others, there's still, it doesn't just go away. We don't just get to go, oh well, because that they weren't caught on that day, right? There's still responsibility for actions, even for people who've done that in the past. And let's say that you have even moved on. I'll compare it to something completely different. Let's say somebody stole $1 million, 5 years ago, but then hasn't done anything illegal since, and in fact has become a pillar of society. That doesn't mean they still shouldn't be held accountable for that theft of, all that money those years ago, even though they've completely changed. That doesn't alleviate that. It still needs to be addressed, and it's up to the courts and everybody else to look at that and go, okay, we see that was done, but here's the mitigating things of what's happened since then, or how that person has changed, or all those types of things. But quite frankly, that's not our decision to make. That's for us to collect and then present, and then the courts make that decision. So that's kind of where we're going on this. And like I said before, we can't make any promises about anything, but as Steve said,
right.
When the courts look at this, they look at cooperation and things like that favorably, because it's one of those things of it's not just being forthright. It's also taking some responsibility and accepting some things and admitting to some things, and we already know you didn't mastermind this, and so
that's okay. Look,
and it's not to.
I know that you're trying to check all your boxes here, all right? I get it. If you have information on individuals that you're investigating, and you want additional information from me, that's fine. That's fine. Absolutely fine. I just need to know who the you're talking about.
Okay.
Oh, because you want to see what we already know, kind of.
No. Not even. You just show me a picture. What do you know about that guy?
Mm-hmm. That guy, which detectives are referring to, is Justin. But credit where credit is due. Justin himself probably does not know this. Fortunately, in the next 2 minutes, he's about to realize he is that guy, resulting in the breakdown of the century.
If we put a picture before you and said, was this person involved in the planning and and such, the planning and manufacture of the Molotov cocktails on...
You mean the decoys?
Yes, whatever you want to call them.
Well, they were ineffective, so calling them Molotov cocktails kind of...
It's a device that has been deemed by experts within the government to have been functional in nature. So they have already been...
That's not something I intended to do.
So I'm just saying, it's like putting if you didn't know how to put a firearm together and you just happen to make a workable firearm, it's a workable firearm, right? So...
me. Me. Oh, me.
So that's why I'm...
Oh my God.
Right, so that's why I was trying to talk about
vomit, dude. Oh my God.
If you need to.
Oh my God, no.
This is the exact moment that Justin Moore realized he should have been more careful before trying to fool detectives.
For the love of God, no. They just had a rag. That was it. And it was a thin rag meant to get smell out. Like if anyone attempted to light that shit, it would have blown up immediately. Like the intent was to not get it near anything and just get my reputation up and get that shit away from people who might actually throw them.
That might have been
And
that might have been what you were told, but that's not the information that we have.
Okay.
And what we're saying here is, like Rick said, we don't want you to bear the entire responsibility of this. I mean,
so as we said before too, we not just your phones, which but other electronic devices we've already searched and found things that suggest that you alone were not the person that was engaged in this activity.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned if we told you about somebody, you could kind of fill us in on what they knew or in whatever.
Yeah, whatever keeps me out of jail.
Did you hear about the
helping?
Did you hear about the guy that hit the police officer with the bat, the baseball bat?
Kirby,
yeah.
Yeah, I heard about him. He turned out to be like some important politician's son or some shit.
Wow.
So him,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He had previously participated in the use of a Molotov as well in another location. So did you know Kirby?
I didn't know him well.
But you knew him.
I met him a couple times. We sparred a couple times actually.
At a like
boxing.
At not a protest, but at some
wrestling, but yeah.
Okay.
So like at Cal Anderson or
yeah.
Okay. And so what was your activity with Kirby that day? Labor Day?
I think that was the day I met him. I think that we had a wrestling match and like little sparring session in Cal Anderson Park that day.
After the protest?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he was at Cal Anderson after the protest?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he have anybody he hung out with?
Not that I know of directly. Like I don't.
You mentioned was it Mario?
Mario Delano Reitz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he hanging out with him or?
I don't know. That day he definitely didn't want to hang out with me.
Mario didn't?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Like he kind of had to stick up about me for a while after that.
Okay.
Understandably so, everyone else did.
Because of the 12-pack.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And I'm kind of recognizable, so.
Yeah. What about any one of his friends?
He had a lot.
Okay.
Kirby?
No.
Oh.
Mario.
Okay.
So Kirby that night, was he with anybody? Because again, we've reviewed lots of videos. Was he?
I know.
Do you remember who he was with? I'll even make it easier for you. I'll even give you a little. Was he with a female that day?
Female. I think there was a female near the sparring match. Yeah.
You know about her?
I don't remember a lot about her. Why? What's up with her? What? Don't tell me anything that's
right. I see them
compromise.
Right.
Whatever.
I see them marching. Right. So, were they at Cal Anderson later? Did you chat with them? Did you? I mean, you were sparring and stuff like that.
Kirby was kind of quiet. I think a couple days later is when the whole bat incident happened, and that was kind of unexpected. Like, I didn't really think like he had that in him. Like,
okay.
The way he wrestled, I just kind of thought that he might have lacked aggression, but Apparently not.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there was a guy who went by the street name of Ash
Mm-hmm.
that knew him.
Kirby.
But he was just some heroin addict.
Ash?
Mm.
Did you know Ash?
I did, yeah.
Did he have a reputation that was different from what?
He just had a reputation for being full of shit.
Was he you mentioned there was a drug guy at your house. Was he the drug guy at your house?
No. He did live there briefly, but that was before I moved in.
Wow.
It was an ex of one of my friends who was the original leaseholder of the house.
Okay.
Who was moving and wanted to pass the house off to somebody who could use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
okay. So she leaves. She's the
that
original.
was her ex.
I got you.
She found out about the addiction. And
That he
was
had.
like, yeah,
I got
and she was like, F that.
Yeah.
And then she told, she told me, and I told everybody I knew.
Right.
Just because it was like, hey, watch your valuables around this guy.
Yeah. I saw there was somebody prior to you on a lease. Jordan, I
Yeah,
think.
that's her.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'd also like very much like if I'm going to be used, like the people that I'm discussing need to not know I discussed them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. And
Because
you're,
then if like right now I kind of look like a snitch, but I didn't dime anybody out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
we're just talking about it. You guys.
No,
know.
I mean from inauguration day.
Right. Inauguration
Right.
day was.
And so they were kind of thinking that.
Yeah, I kind of.
Didn't they have questions?
I kind of
about
like
the-
already have a reputation as a snitch because of that
Mhm.
whole like talking to the police at all business, and like if I'm to be used like in a wire situation or something like that.
And we're not talking about that here. We're talking about just the basic information.
Yeah, I'm talking about. I'm trying to talk about the future because
Yeah.
that's all I'm worried about right now.
Well, I'm surprised. Like, did
I didn't-
Kirby have a reputation after he got arrested? Then.
He got arrested, and then everybody all of a sudden found out he was some politician's kid, and that's the last I heard of him.
So that was received negatively, you think, or?
Well, it was received negatively by me. Like,
Yeah.
that's too high on everyone's radar of everybody like you guys, and I just didn't want any of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
So you mentioned Ash and Kirby. Was there anybody else that you didn't know the female very well?
had you protested with Ash before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you knew. I guess since you met him since he was Jordan's ex, that you knew him, and then you guys were protesting together, I guess, or you did some protests together.
Yeah, I knew him before I knew her.
Oh, okay.
Did Ash introduce you to Kirby then, or how did you meet Kirby again?
I just met him at Cal Anderson Park when like a bunch of protesters were just kind of chilling there.
Just hanging out.
And
okay.
like,
He just was there too.
yeah, I just kind of met him in passing.
Okay.
It's interesting to note Justin's erratic moral compass throughout this interview. Not even 30 minutes earlier, he refused to give details, saying he didn't want to snitch or incriminate anyone. Now, he has provided most of the details he knows about the people involved. This contradictory behavior is also true for the major pieces of the puzzle, like his intentions and involvement in the crime. Given enough time and pressure, Justin has revealed almost everything about his crime. As someone who loves breaking down interrogations, Justin is taking all the fun away.
Do you think that, kind of going back to the bottles with the rags, do you think somebody did something to the rags, maybe that was helping you, or
No.
whoever put the rags in there, maybe the way they tied the knots, or or something like that that would have changed it from what you'd envisioned?
No, I don't think so. Like, you can hook me up to a polygraph. I never meant for any of those to do any damage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I built them knowing that they wouldn't. Like,
Even if he's hooked up to a polygraph, these tests are inadmissible in court because of how inaccurate they are. Although they are accurate 60 to 90% of the time, these odds are considered too low to be reliable.
what you're telling me is that I that task up and probably ruined my life in the process.
That's not.
And that's so.
Again, that's so many things for so many other people to decide. We're just telling you that was. Remember, I told you that was the charge, and the charge has to be substantiated by that one thing. So it doesn't mean that's the ultimate decision of a judge or anybody else or a prosecutor. That just means it is what it is, right? So.
But if I want to not go to prison forever, like, I'll do whatever it takes.
Well, you're
I
talking
need to,
about like future stuff, but the best way to set yourself up would be, for future stuff, would be, you know, if we could have some clarity on what happened in the past. And so maybe,
ask away.
you know, maybe from the way you saw things, you had this idea of just doing this all on your own, but maybe if you kind of thought back, kind of the interactions you had with different people leading up to it, do you think it's possible, like, somebody could have influenced you somehow, and then now thinking back about it, like, you know, maybe that person did influence me? You know?
Right, or that when the devices were constructed, it was your thought or your belief that they weren't functional, but that when somebody had constructed them, they were indeed functional, and that you, again, were just somebody who wasn't aware that what you were carrying was what it was.
I thought that you needed to, like, kind of cork it so that the fumes don't light immediately. But if you construct proper ones, then one, that's terrorism.
Well,
Don't do that. Like,
so
and two, like, I was trying to, like, draw people out that were rowdy towards me so that I could then identify them and get the rest of the crowd to remove them before protests start.
Which is very similar to what you told the Seattle Police Department on the day of your arrest at the Starbucks.
Yeah, it was a continued strategy until it became clear that the law doesn't care about that strategy and I should stand the down. And I did so.
So what more could you tell us about Kirby or Ash?
Ash was constantly lying about shit. He claimed he was part of some organization and had, like, hacker capabilities, and people that work for, like, Microsoft and shit, like actual tech guys, like, they're like, he doesn't know what the he's talking about. So, like, shortly after that, we found out about his drug problem, and just kind of, he off and went to go live with his sister or something.
Oh, okay.
Did he, and is it your assertion, either way, that he had nothing to do with the Molotov cocktails on Labor Day?
I believe so, yeah. He may have, like, he may have, like, maybe maneuvered in the crowd to, like, give me space or something. Like, I don't know, maybe, but not with my knowledge, no.
Well, did you
Or, like,
did you talk to him about your plan?
I may have. I talked about a few people with the plan, but not the actual plan. Like I talk to people like, you know, talking myself up, like, you know, hey, look at these things that I'm bringing to the party. Look at how badass I am.
Like days before or weeks before or
Days probably. But
And so when you say, so Ash might have been one of those people that you talked about it with?
yeah,
The guy that gave you a ride?
yeah.
Okay.
But that was just me saying that, and a lot of people say a lot of things.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people. There's so many people that, like, when they see shit happening in front of them that's all intense, then they just like get all fired up, I guess. I don't know how to just, and like they'll just like promise 8 million things and come through with none of it.
Okay.
And like I assume that from the reactions I got from other folks that that's probably what.
So they were surprised to actually see him?
Oh, yeah, like a few people got hostile,
Okay.
like immediately.
And that's because they'd kind of been talking about it before?
No, they just smelled it and they're like, what the f?
Yeah.
But
what about the bottles filled with gas that were stored in the garbage can near the building that day?
huh?
Did you have any knowledge about any of that part of it?
Mm-mm. No. The 12 I had in that little box was my whole thing.
Okay.
And so you didn't know about any other plan to
No,
work
I
in
did
conjunction?
see a Molotov get thrown, but that wasn't one of mine.
And
like-
that was after everybody left?
No, that was when we were on our way. Like the spog was all right, so the spog's here, right?
Yep.
And they quick almost immediately started chasing the protesters away.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they were I'm sorry, what was the question? I'm sorry.
The little bottles filled with gas at a garbage can down by
Yeah.
Spog. And you were saying you,
I don't know. Yeah, when we were getting chased off back up the road,
Mhm.
I saw a Molotov get thrown then. And I'm like, well, that wasn't one of mine, but people are going to assume that's me.
Yeah.
You know, but even then, like, I didn't want to the idea to lie and say, like, yeah, that was me. Like, it occurred just to, like, further the whole thing, but one, I didn't think it was needed, and two, I might be picking a fight with a guy who actually threw it, and that's just dangerous. And then three, like I had taken credit for a bunch of stuff that I didn't do just to try to increase my rep, but I'm not a very good liar, so I think people like started getting turned off by me because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, maybe give that a rest. But I just noticed the one.
The one that was thrown?
Yeah, that day I think there was only one thrown.
Okay.
To make anything that was going to classify as a destructive device, I tried specifically to avoid that. I tried very specifically to avoid that so that I wouldn't be here.
Well,
who else you got?
Well, that's kind of, I'm just
I mean, we've got some other people.
Yeah.
All right, well,
It's just, it's just, the story's, I think you're telling a little bit of the truth.
Yep.
And I think that you're maybe skipping over some parts. And so, we've obviously got information that's filling in the gaps. And other people that were participants.
And part of the stuff we're trying to find about, what's your...
Obviously you're the more forward person because you're in the video.
Yeah.
With the 12-pack, that was pasted all over the internet.
Kind of adds to the veracity of your statements when we're looking at things that you say. There are some things we already know, so that when there are some things that you answered and we go, okay, that checks out. But in other things where you say something, we go, no, that doesn't even check out.
Yeah,
that doesn't check out, not even a little bit. So then
Alright,
it appears to
well,
us like, well, he's lying.
Keep in mind, this is a very scary situation for
It is.
me.
You've been through a lot.
Let's just, I don't want anything bad to happen to people who don't deserve it or
Mm-hmm.
haven't done anything directly to harm anyone and never will. I don't want any of those people to be fucked with, and if there are plenty of individuals in the protest community where if you pointed them out and you said, do you know about this dude or any of the things that he did, I can probably fill in gaps that you're missing in other investigations as well. I just let's iron out the flat edges, because I don't want to look like I'm not cooperating. I don't want to be uncooperative, and I don't want violent threats walking around either.
Right. And and what you're talking about is kind of two separate things. Like when we were talking about other things that happened to the protest or other incidents that happened, that's one thing, and that has value. Your knowledge on that has value, but that's over here. That's not even a part of this.
Yeah,
and we're focused on this and
I'm entirely focused on
and so no matter
not wearing these for the rest of my life.
Right. I can understand
and
that.
I am so in danger of having my entire life just taken from me right now.
Right. And look, if we talked about nothing, it wouldn't change what we already know, right?
Right.
If we had no communications here, it wouldn't change what we already know. We obviously have enough to have a judge sign off that we have probable cause based on the amount of evidence that we have. So that's not it's not like we're starting out with a blank piece of paper like this, Mr. Moore, and we have no information and we're just asking you to fill it in.
Yeah.
We're not asking you to fill in all this information. We're saying we have a piece of paper that actually has a fair amount of writing on it that we already know, and one of the things that we look for is the person being forthright? Is the person being complete in their information? Is the person cooperating, or are they not cooperating? I understand what you're saying, but I go back to my example of even if somebody's life has turned a different direction, or they've gone a different way, or I think there's still consequences for something they've done, and as I said before, we are quite confident, as Steve has said, we are quite confident that you didn't do this alone. And we have pretty good ideas, pretty good evidence on all this stuff. And it's trying to figure out if we're going to get to that spot so that we can say, yep, we talked to Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore, what he said, it actually, is lockstep in what we already knew.
So we think he's telling us.
So we think he's telling us the truth.
He's being upfront with us.
So that when he says something in the future to a judge or a prosecutor or whatever, they go, well, he has been truthful in the past, so at least we can kind of hang our hat on that.
For the next 25 minutes, Justin Moore refuses to give up any more information. He firmly believed what he did was right, and that regardless of his actions, no one was hurt because of his so-called prop Molotovs. Fortunately, that wasn't what the court believed. He was sentenced by the U.S. District Court in Seattle to 40 months in prison for his role in plotting to burn down the Seattle Police Officers Guild. However, we cannot confirm or deny if Justin Moore has since been hired as an undercover agent by the FBI.